Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm being very quiet because at first it seemed like it was going to be really loud. Alrighty then. Well, it would be super awesome if I could share two of my screens, but we're not going to try that. Because, I mean, we're just going to like swish. We'll swish when we need it. I am Ken Kitchen. I spent most of my career at the city of Chattanooga, where I had every job except for network. Not because I wasn't good at them, I don't think, but anyway. I retired in 2019 and went straight to another job, which lasted about 6 months until COVID came out and they started getting rid of people. And I was like, well, you know, I started this company. Why don't I quit? Because I was retired, right? And I had insurance still. It's like, why don't I quit? You don't have to get rid of somebody else. And you guys just contract with my company. And so we did that. And most of the time since then, I've worked with my company, which is KMD Enterprises, but there's also a couple of different names we use legally. Everybody here, okay, so I know about you because we talk Linux, and I'm sure you're a Linux guy, right?
No.
We will convert him by the end of the day.
I mean, I do, to be fair,
Yeah.
I want to have a dual boot system for Linux.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't done it yet because my computer's kind of old and I just want to wait till I build a new one and worry about all that.
Gotcha, yeah. One thing about Windows 10 and 11, you have to put it on first. There may be a way.
That's what somebody told me to do,
Yeah.
too, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier if you just put him on first.
Yeah. So, yeah, start there.
To be fair, I do use an Ubuntu terminal, so.
So, since it's just us, I can say suck in my presentation. I suck at presentations. So anyway, we're starting with a rabbit hole because it's going to happen regardless. Who's Pearl Guy? Pearl Guy.
I still quote that.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know it was him, but I have heard it for years, and so I went looking for this presentation, and I was like, oh, dude, and a patch tool. So, I think there is probably a little bit of, I don't think people are really calling good programmers lazy, right?
Right.
But there's some very, I guess there's something realistic in the sense that you have that drive to find an easier way to get stuff done. And you know, because of your job and what you live with, that computers are all about, you know, things that you repeat and make them the same and or you don't have to do them over and over. So, I have a terminal window here. I have a place to paste from, and I don't have a really good way to, oh crap, you know what I forgot to do? Since it's just us. I was in here by myself and was kind of figuring out how to get everything put together. So are you guys familiar with multipass? You know what multipass is? Told you they're big rabbit holes. Multipass is a product from Canonical, and basically it spins up VMs on your local machine, pre-Ubuntized, and you know, you pick your flavor, you pick like, it lets you specify the memory and stuff like that. So we're actually going to do that real quick. So it lets you pick these various things, and it will launch this Ubuntu, and it's in the cloud, like the same way if you did it with DishWashing or whatever. You got the cloud and knit stuff in there, and so we're going to do this real quick. Meant to do this ahead of time, and I didn't. So give me just a second. MB launch button. All right, there we go. So have a little script that gets my SSH key loaded into the new Ubuntu instance that it creates. But if we pop back over here and we look at the list of instances, this is the one I just created, this one called local test, and it's already up. It's got an IP address, and it's got my SSH key in it. And this is the only thing I forgot to do. Hold on just a second. Let me just put this IP address into. These are my C4 web glasses too. Hearts. Host. I can't see. Son of a. Excuse me. Sorry. This is one of those old things, Mike, that we were just talking about. Host with an S. Put an S on it, Cooper. All right, and I think that IP address was 140. The range is all the same. It just DHCPs and gets, this last one will change every time you make a new one. We're calling it Drupal test for a reason. Okay, so that's in my host file. That's done. There's one other place I have to put it, but that other place is something we're going to talk about. So, all right, if I wanted to do like a task on a server, and let's say that, let me pop back over. I hope I don't make anybody throw up, including myself. Is this the, oh, where, got ahead of myself. There we go. Okay, this is where we're supposed to be. So, like, and this thing said for developers, but, you know, are you guys, who does what? Since there's only 3 of us, who does what? What do y'all do? Like, server stuff, coding stuff?
Now I write code and run a couple companies that I'm the back end guy now.
Yeah, cool, great job. You guys developers or server people or both?
I'm an infrastructure guy. I'm a DevOps consultant. But this year, I'm accidentally a programmer. The whole year I've been a developer.
All right. And
Well, considering I'm about half a month out of the boot camp, I am a very rookie engineer.
yeah, all right, well, cool. So, everybody knows what SSH is. I had no idea. I've not been to Drupal camp before because it was Drupal camp and I don't know anything about Drupal. So anyway, so I didn't really know what kind of audience we would have, but I was actually prepared to explain what SSH was in case I needed to. So you could SSH, just taking an example, you are a developer, you have a cron job, it didn't run, you need to figure out why it didn't run. So you SSH into the server, and then you can run the journal control command there, and then you can exit after you got your information. You can also do the second thing, which is SSH like that, and it's just going to run that stuff and put the information on the screen for you. And if we steal that, I think I can steal that from, I think that's why I made the little notes file. So, this is a different command, but we'll run it the same way. And this is, you guys probably all know that you can do this, but we'll just pop that in there and change that IP address. I'm going to forget that at some point. It was 140, right?
Yep.
All right, and first time. All right, and so it just spits it out on the screen, and I'm no longer connected to the server. So you've got that methodology where you can make that SSH connection, do something, disconnect, get on with your life. If you, say for instance, are responsible for keeping the server package updates done. So you gotta go into the server, do apt update, or apt update, apt upgrade, maybe auto remove to clean things up, you know. So you could schedule something to do that, and you could do it just like this, right? Mike mentioned before you guys came in that he has sort of a homegrown tool. Years ago, I was kind of writing something homegrown to do some of this stuff because I didn't know that Ansible existed. Mine wasn't really trying to do this stuff, it was sort of ancillary, but when I realized that that's what Ansible did, it was really, I don't know, it helped.
Yeah.
And Ansible is actually making a separate connection. It is, for every step that it executes, it's SSHing, making a connection, doing what it was supposed to do, disconnecting, and then it will do it again. Unless that has changed, that's the way it was, or the way generally it has been. So, essentially, the way we just did it could be a lot of work, right? Because, you know, if you just do the journal control, it's gonna stop your screen, right? You have to do a queue to keep moving, right? So do you go looking around, well, what do I do to make it just show me the information and quit? And then that's the point where you kind of start reinventing the wheel and things like that. So it's our presentation. We're going to talk about just in general some high-level Ansible stuff in terms of what it does. My goal is not to teach you guys how to use Ansible because that would be ridiculous for 45 minutes. And this was the hardest thing I ever tried to put together because there's so much. And ooh, I want to tell them this. Ooh, did you know you could? Anyway, so really with the install configure, I'm just going to cover some of the things that are a pain in the butt, or maybe you just kind of need to know before you hit. Oh, they're recording this. I said sucks and butt.
Let me know.
I didn't use them together though. All right, and then we're talking about ad hoc commands and then playbooks. And I better get moving. All right. What it is and why you might care. I have notes on this. I have ADHD.
Hey, me too.
Okay.
I understand.
You know, diagnosed. I mean, you know, take meds. Not enough meds.
Still doesn't help.
No, a little bit, right? You know,
Very
if,
minor amount.
if there was a time that I ran out and we had, you know, because they're a controlled substance, I ran out and I couldn't get them for like 3 weeks. And I noticed
Yeah,
big time.
I can relate to that.
All right, so.
My wife can too.
Right. So I hope the SSH thing sort of kind of put us on the right track. I think too that when you start seeing what Ansible can do, you realize, well, so in my original notes, I was like, I had a little bash script, you know, that did some of these things, and being a programmer and ADHD, next thing I know, I was, you know, passing values in the script and, you know, checking to make sure, did they enter this, is it correct, you know, the error checking out. And then I'm like, holy crap, there must have been a lot of work that went into actually making Ansible. But then I made this comment about not, I forget how I said it, I was like, you know, you can't do all this in Bash. And I was like, oh, hell. People will be like, yeah, you can. It's like, okay, yes, you can. I understand you can do it in Bash.
Should is another question.
Right. Ansible is an open source, so let me say it louder. Ansible is an open source command line IT automation software application written in Python. It's created by the Red Hat people. It is open source. They have, just like they do with Red Hat, they have a paid, you know, where you can pay them and get their services or whatever. So they can make money off of it, which is totally fair. It can configure systems, deploy software, and orchestrate advanced workflows to support application deployment, system updates, and more. Now, when I have Googled around about Ansible things, there have been times that I have gotten Terraform in the same sentence. Is anybody familiar with Terraform? Yeah, infrastructure, yeah. So you can probably tell me better what Terraform does, but my understanding is, and rather than read this little quote, I'm going to say basically my understanding of it is you have the cloud things and you have Terraform, which is just right to connect, to do the cloud things, right? To give me an RDS, to give me an ES2 with these specs and maybe make a VPC and connect all these things together. You know, Whereas Ansible can do those things too, but Ansible is really more, kind of more at the ground level in a lot of ways, because what you'll see is that you can, say for instance, create a MySQL database for your Drupal app, right? I have a script that we're going to run in a minute, but Ansible also seems to come up with CI/CD and searches with that sometimes, because you can use Ansible in your CI/CD solution. I'm a GitLab fan, and so if you're doing auto deploy from GitLab, that's just one of the things that you can put in it. You can run Ansible as part of your deployment, and if you happen to already know Ansible, that's really, that's really just a nice benefit. Terraform, Ansible. Okay, so Ansible is written in Python. It uses YAML, and therefore it is indent sensitive. Something not in the right, just like Docker, with YAML stuff, something that's not in the right position, it's going to give you an error. It's for Linux and Mac, but you can put it in Windows on WSL. WSL is awesome if you're using Windows. I still maintain Windows for games, but WSL is really pretty cool, and it's gotten a lot better over time. So if you are trying to install Ansible, you just Google. So the Ansible docs are really good, and the one thing that you can kind of look for is in the upper left-hand, whether or not I'm on the community or open source version versus, or they're all open source, but whether you're on the community or paid version. It seems to make a difference. I'm always, on the community. But if you Google for it, you get the official Ansible docs. They are very thorough. There's a lot of examples. One of my favorite quotes is, well-written examples worth 1,000 words. And it is. So you can install from the repos, right? If you're on a Mac, you can use some brute for it. You can use pipx. You can, in theory, use pip. If I said, now look, what is pipx, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, I'm not entirely sure what pipx is in terms of, if you are on Ubuntu and Ubuntu comes, or at least the recent versions, have Python installed. And if you try to install a pip, Ubuntu throws this message and says that your Python environment is maintained somewhere else or whatever. And it's basically telling you, if you want to install something for Python, use app. Put it in that way and don't use pip. Pipx will bypass that and just install what you want it to. And it doesn't seem to have any adverse effects that I have seen so far. I am not super familiar with, this is the only thing I've ever used it for. I didn't know about it before the Ansible thing. And so I've been using Ansible for a long time. I haven't been using Python for a long time. I just got into Python like about a year ago. So if you are on WSL, Windows subsystem for Linux, by default, the permissions, WSL reflects NTFS, I guess. I think that's the file system. It reflects those permissions and not Linux permissions. And Ansible, we're going to talk about the config file in a minute. Ansible will say your config file doesn't have the correct permissions, I can't run. And you can't just chmod in WSL. You can. It won't tell you that anything's wrong. It just doesn't work. So if you do this, etc. WSL conf, I think maybe when I tried it, that file didn't even exist, and then put something like this in, it will then cause it to use the Linux permissions. Then you can say chmod, and it actually works. That was one of those little gotchas that was very frustrating for me, because I'm like, this is the only thing stopping me. So when you do start using Ansible, so you do the pipx, you install it. Typically what I do is just create a directory called Ansible, or whatever my project is. I've got Ansible prod and Ansible test and just different things like that for where I'm you know, doing different things. But you create that directory, and you can create your config file and your host, which we'll talk about in a second, in there, and use those. There's an order of precedence, because if you install it via apt, I feel like I'm telling too much information. I'll try to stay out of the weeds a little bit, especially given the clock. And we'll see here where I can see the clock. If you install it with apt, etc., Ansible will be a thing, and there's a config file there, and that will be the one that gets used if you don't override it with some other logic. Edit that, that's fine. You put it anywhere really that you want, as long as Ansible knows to look for it. But if you put it in the directory that you're running from, so like you have an Ansible for production, server maintenance, or whatever, that directory on your drive is where you're running from, and you put a config file there, it's just going to use that one, right? Because that's where you are. All right. So these things, long path is pretty self-explanatory, but inventory equals host. It's telling it what your host file is, and in this example, my host file is going to be in the same folder. And so no qualification, it just says host. The host key checking, you know, that's where when you log in the first time with your SSH key, it asks you to say yes, type yes. That gets rid of that. That just prevents Ansible from doing that. So the host file, oh my gosh, I didn't change my example. Sorry. The host file is basically a series of IP addresses, right? And you can group them. In fact, let me close your eyes so you don't get seasick. Let me just open this up because I think we're in the right folder. Yep. Yeah, we're gonna come back to that in a minute. Wrong classes again. Okay, that is a very simple host file. See the little braces, give them categories like, you know, AWS, and then the local, which while I'm here, I should edit to a 140. With the host file actually has quite a lot of features incorporated into it. You can have like those 4 AWS servers are all US East, but let's say you had some central and you know different places like that. You could have a group of AWS that has all the AWS. You could have a group that has the East, so you're going to run updates and you're going to reboot the servers, and you want to do the East at midnight, and you know whatever time frames. You can use those groups to granulate what you pick. So you can use the host file to really give yourself some organization and make the maintenance process easier. Those are the two things that you need in that directory. So like if we pop back over here, and both of these are in that source Ansible folder that I put together for this. So you can see there's a config and there's a host. My config has what we just discussed and a user. So these are main things about the hosting file. Is it gives you an inventory that allows for grouping and categorization. It allows you to define variables that are associated with a group and specifically with that group. And it can be dynamic. It can be static, which is what we just looked at, just a file with IPs in it, but it can be dynamic and be generated from stuff that you're using. So let's pop it over to, I could not think of a better way to do this. And I don't know how, like, I watch YouTube videos, maybe they're edited or something like that. I don't know really how the people poof that line in it, poof that line. You know, I think there should be software for that. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this command out right down here, and we haven't talked about what this does yet, but I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna pick that, and we're gonna paste it in this window over here. And this won't be distracting at all, I promise. Yes, I'll be staring at it in a minute. Oh, I was supposed to be talking. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So, commands. You can run ad hoc commands from Ansible. And we're not going to tab. We're just going to look at some of these examples because you kind of get it, right? So like if I were to go over to one of my windows and paste that command in, let's do that first one. So it says Ansible all and a -m. The -m is for module. So Ansible has a lot of modules and plugins, and a lot of them are community written. And like ping is one, but shell is one, which is basically saying, I want to do a shell command. And that's kind of it. I didn't mean to go forward. So we will pop over here, I think somewhere, let's do these. So like for instance, I'm going to grab this and pop back over here. And what I'm going to do, you see how this says AWS? Those are those 4 AWS servers. Wrong window. I just spun those up today so that we can use them here. So you can see, what I wanted to see was what is in sources listed. So there's nothing but a bunch of it because it's new. But like this is where you would have other repos and things like that. Just an example though of how you can look at all your servers in a group or all your servers period and just kind of run a command on them. Let's say we wanted to do, let's just do a df and in these. And same idea is you're going to be able to pop out to all these servers with this one command and see, or is the disk full? How am I looking on disk space? Is this running? Just different kind of things like that you might want to check. Some of the examples, and again, when we conceived of this was in one of the PHP media groups that we do the third or first Wednesday of every month, do it online. If you don't come to that, it's great, it's online, for one thing, you don't have to leave the house. But when we talked about it, it was like, well, 4 developers, and we kind of took that approach with it. And so I kind of, thought about some different things that developers might want to do, and managed system packages may or may not be one of them. But with this group, I think everybody can figure out what you might want to do on a server, But if you look at like that command right there, the edit configuration file, the line and find module is actually finding a line using regex and replacing it if it exists. So you can use that to, this one thing that we hard-coded was changed on all, needs to change on all our servers. Distribute new configuration files. All of these can be done with these little ad hoc commands. I thought this one was pretty cool. I stole it from somebody, but you get you've onboarded a new developer, so you want to add them to all the servers, and then while you're there, that guy that left last week, you want to take him out. So those are some things. Playbooks. So playbooks. Playbooks, as you may have gathered, is the combining of all the things, right? So we looked at the configuration, we looked at the host file, which tells what things I'm going to run against, run my plays against, and we looked at how you just run one command. A playbook is where you have a YAML file and you put a bunch of stuff in there, and you just send it on its merry way. I like this phrasing. This is from Red Hat or from the Ansible website. A playbook represents the desired state of a system. So you'll see things like I want to install Apache. Well, the thing to, Nginx would be a better example, because that's what I use. You know, you would see that, and it would say Nginx, and then under it would be present. You would see the word. We'll see it in a minute, because it's looking for the state. Is this running? Is this there? You know, things like that. And the as code, and I split it out into two lines because the as code is huge. Kind of like the person outside. You were talking about Nick's, you know, how and Terraform. You know, how great is it to be able to have a Git repository that is exactly how we install our Drupal fonts or whatever you're doing. And that's pretty awesome. This is an example. This is a really super simple, and you can kind of see, I just put it on one screen. This is the actual code of a super simple playbook. So you see at the top, we've got, you know, just the name, the host web servers. That's pointing to your host file. So you want to run it on the AWS group or the AWS East or the DigitalOcean, whatever. You know, you can say in the host there. That doesn't mean that it will always run on those things. It's okay, you know, you guys have been here all day. I'm getting late, which is another story. I didn't intend to. Anyway, it limits to that. So I still don't have to run it on all the web servers, but this will run on the AWS group even if I tell it to. You know, so that's a restriction. Become, yes, says this playbook is allowed to escalate its privileges. It's allowed to be root. It's allowed to be sudo or do sudo things. That vars list can be as much as you want it to be, and that's hard coded, that app path. Just for example, this can be an environment variables. You can acquire this information from different sources or whatever. And then you've got the list of tasks. So we're going to check, and that's where I was saying earlier that you see the state present. So it's using the app module, and it's saying Apache 2, is it here? And then down here, it's copying in, well, this is deploying your app. So it's copying in your app files to the server, and then it's starting the Apache service. So that's what a playbook kind of looks like, right? I already mentioned I don't know Drupal. I can install anything. I don't like to if it involves Java and Tomcat and stuff like that. I don't like that, but I can install Drupal. It's just it's a lamp app. So okay, we are going to tab back over to that window, and you can see down here that what I started on the right side has finished. And if we scroll up, if we scroll up, you can see it did a lot of things. All right, so let me pop over to, I need two windows that I don't have open yet. And it'll just take me a second, I promise. And we will go to http://localhost. I think it's just localhost. Honestly, don't remember. Oh, not 8080, Ralph.
It's trying to be.
It just wants to use 8080. Good grief. Give me just a second. Oh no, I know what I need to do. I need to read my notes. Slow down here a little bit. Is Drupal test.local is actually where I want to go. If this doesn't work, I tested it 72 times, actually more like 2 or 3 times, but I did test it. Drupal test.local. There we go. So that multipass that I spun up and it was empty, it's now got this, right? And I'm not a Drupal person. I don't know how to do an unscripted installation of Drupal. Let's take the little demo thing here. And when we pasted that command in, I said we would come back to it, and I'm going to pull this up right here and highlight that. So what we did with this is Ansible-playbook, which is going to run playbook, right? And then the playbook installed Drupal from scratch is in a directory PVD for a playbook demo. And then you see that limit local. So you saw my host file had all those AWS servers in it. We don't want to, do that. We want to do that one server that I had designated under local, which was the multi-pass server. And then the extra bars. So these are things that just my playbook just happens to use. So we got a slug, and username, password. Yes, I reused the same password, but it is at least a pretty good password. And then there's that domain, the Drupal test.local. And so all of those are part of the string that I passed when I ran this, which obviously tells you you could run this 1,000 times with different pieces of information, different targets, and you would get different Drupal servers spun up. I just want to actually go ahead and put this in. So our database was Drupal test. Sorry. Drupal test. Drupal test. DB. User was Drupal test USR. Password was that big long string of stuff. And we're going to save and continue. Oh, for Pete's sake, what did I do wrong?
Open up that advanced options, see if there's something weird in it.
Sorry, what?
The advanced options tab, sometimes it puts the wrong 40.
Drupal test, DB. You'll just have to trust me. Trust me. We're working. It's probably just a typo somewhere or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Hey. It's going to drive me crazy. Just put that password back in there one more time. Is that the right thing that was in that field? Yes, the password is the right thing that was in that field. We'll test USR. We'll test DB. Let's pop back over here. We'll test. Group L test. What a goober. So often when I'm actually doing something like this, I will copy and paste every field, and the people I'm working with will go, it's this. And I'm like, I don't care. Because if I type it, I may not get it right, and that seems to happen a lot. So let's put that in, and then.
At this point, I'm blind and dyslexic. I do the same.
You're blinded to what?
Dyslexic.
Oh. Yeah, sometimes I wonder about myself, seriously. And so now it's off and it's gone. So, and of course, next it's going to make me create a user. We're not going to go through all of that, because what I want to do in the last couple of minutes is, this is the playbook. And I usually use a trackball with this. My laptop, I didn't bring it, so the touchpad is really throwing me off. So, this is the playbook. So this is a brand new server, and I've been used before. So the first thing I wanted to do was update the packages. So it's like those first 5 steps are the same things that we use in our production workflow at CAMD for people's servers in terms of keeping those things updated. I'm not going to go through everything here, but you can kind of see there's an app. We looked at that with the Apache thing, but there's just some packages that are useful for some of the things we deploy, so we're getting them installed. You'll notice that the become true is cited on these things where we have to sudo the PHP step. So this is, it adds a PPA. You guys use that PPA? You haven't seen, no, it's okay, good. I mean, it's been around forever. It seems very well trusted. I was hesitant to use it on production servers at first, but then I've been using that, guys, for Nginx review. And it's going to install those PHP things, right? Anybody use Docker? What a dumb question. Okay, so kind of like Docker. Like if you're building your own image, you're doing these same kind of things, although sometimes, especially with PHP, and PHP extensions, Docker can be, in my opinion, a little bit of a pain. Composer, I'm actually following the getcomposer.org website, following the exact same steps that they put on their website, and just running those in PHP via Ansible and getting Composer installed. Further down, you see we're installing MariaDB, rebooting the server because it just seemed like it was time. Here we're going to actually do the Drupal install. And it's using Composer to do that because that's what the instructions on the Drupal website said to do. It's using those variables that I passed through the command line. So I'm creating the MySQL user out of slug USR, and then there's the path. And you see, so giving that user permissions on the database. Now, when we deploy something in PHP, we use Nginx, we use FPM. Every client, usually every site, gets their own non-privileged user, and the site files and things are installed under that. Well, PHP FPM also gets configured to run under, to have their user be the owner of their conf file for PHP FPM. And so that gets a little, I mean, if I'm doing it by hand, you know, there's a tendency to forget. This is doing all of that though. So I put Kim Kitchen in as my username. So it created a directory on the server, home Kim Kitchen. It put all these files there. It gave that user ownership of that directory, and it did all of those things, right? And so we go through this whole process. Nginx did not exist on that server. It installed it, it configured it, and there's one thing that I want to throw out real quick about this is a template file, and this is a third-party Gin. Somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. Jinja, something, I don't know. Some sort of templating engine, also open source that they use. But you kind of see up here, like, see where it says worker processes at the very top. This is the nginx.conf file, the top file that kind of, you know, sets your basic configuration, and then you can override those if you need to. So you kind of see it like the processor spin it out. So there's a rule of thumb about calculations between worker connections and, or that the calculation about that. I think you derive your worker connections from the processes times 2 or some times the number of servers. I forget what it is. I don't have to remember. So I just want to show you real quick. So first off, that's a template. You can include as many template files as you need. So like you've got a structure of an Nginx conf file is not going to change significantly, but the values might change. And so you can put that template in and accommodate the values for different sets of circumstances. But this is it pulls that file in. Pulls that file from my local machine or wherever I'm running it from, pulls it into the server, replaces those values, and uses that as the Nginx file. Down right about here where I actually took pictures of all of these things, and something happened. It was weird. The pictures looked, the colors were wonky. I had it all nice and neat. So here's the Nginx. So when we're doing that calculation, now you can do math in Ansible. I couldn't quite figure out exactly how to get what I wanted. I mean, I tried a couple of different things out of Ansible syntax to get the calculation to do what I wanted it to, and it just wasn't working. And I was like, okay, well, this will be a good illustration. And so if you look at the top, so it is actually running the shell command to get the number of processors. And you see that register processors, it's saving the output of the command in the field processors. Then the next command is doing a ulimit and registering that as file limit. You see the Nginx debug comment? So you can do this in your Ansible playbook. You put debug statements in so you can see what's happening. You can restart a playbook from the step that failed. So you're 15 steps in and it crashed on 15 steps, especially useful when you're testing, right? You can just restart from that point. So I've got a little bit of debug there, and you see the line 198, do the math, what it is. and it's running a script, Nginx counts, which is, I like it, two-line, Ken couldn't get his math right in a direct Ansible command. So I just did that, and I echoed the result, because that was what it took, right? But you echo the result, and then that step got the result and was able to use that to get the right configuration for the Nginx conf file. So you see how powerful that is, right? I mean, anything that you can do in Linux on a server, you can do through Ansible. But if you don't have a specific Ansible way to do it, and you maybe just don't know the Ansible way to do it, you run a shell script. And the thing about the shell scripts is you can exit O, and Ansible will say, it worked, I'm happy, I'll keep going. If you exit anything other than O, Ansible will error and stop. And so depending on the critical nature of the step that you're doing, if you're using an SH script, you can just pop out and let it run with Ansible and not have to worry about having things go wrong and you didn't know. So I was thinking one other thing about that, but we're already over time. So anywho, I don't think there's anything else about this that I want to point out. There's just a bunch of configuration files and stuff like that. Because you saw what happened. I started that one command, and then we just kept talking. And 5 minutes or so later, when we came back, it was done. It had only run on one server. We didn't do circle or anything like that. It's just because it's local and you're more cool with all of that. But it's spun by Drupal, ready to go. We have worked with WordPress a lot. We work with CakePHP some, just different things like that. We use this, even if we're not deploying in mass, because we don't, we're not very big. But it gives you that consistency. You can point this, and it's great that so many people here develop under Linux desktops or laptops. You can point this to your laptop. You can actually, I've been threatening to do it, I haven't done it yet, but you can actually script out your whole, I need to reinstall all the software that I use because I decided to try Arch Linux. So, I'm done. Thank you. You can do a REST API call from here and get the results and use it in another step. I mean, there's so much you can do. You can add there. We created a database, we created a user, we created a database for the Drupal database user, the password, everything like that, gave it permissions. You'd actually put records in the database. Have a JSON file that you read that has some data that you just do everything with it. It is so cool. All right. Some of you guys that came in late, I told the people that were here first that this was like the hardest presentation ever because I just wanted to talk about it for a really long time. And I just really struggled to okay, what are the high points? And I hope it gave you that. I hope it kind of gave you an idea of what Ansible is capable of. It is a pretty user-friendly tool. The documentation is great. It's not, there are things that are missing, but they have a lot of examples, and the documentation is very consistent about the formatted documentation. So, and if you have any questions, but wait, there's more. I'm kidding. There's not really more. I'm just going to get to that last slide that says thank you. Oh, no, not share. I want to share it with the room. All right. So, Ken at CanGUS is my shortest email address. And if you have any questions, I know this is going to be a shock to you. I like to talk about that. I like to talk about other things too, but if you have any questions, just hit me up. I am at the PHP meetup every first Wednesday of every month too, so. All right, any questions? Yes.
You still don't have to install a client on the machine you're Ansible to,
Nope, because it just uses SSH.
but you still have to be able to get to it via SSH.
That's all you have to do. So like that very first step, so like most, we use DigitalOcean and AWS, and then, of course, I use multi-pass for locals. But, you know, those already put your key in, you know, and so it comes up connectable if you have your key associated with those instances, and then, yeah, you're right in. And that is a great thing about it. And, you know, to me, is the fact you don't have to have client software installed on the servers. Well, alrighty then. I know you guys, like I said, you guys have been here all day. My wife just had back surgery. I had to leave her alone at the house, and she didn't want me to leave her alone at the house. I also, this computer has been dying over the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I got a new one, but I didn't get finished setting it up. So it was like there was a lot of scrambling. I didn't get here until late, and I am going to have to leave and miss the after party. Sorry. But if I go home and my wife has been laying on the floor doing a, help, my phone, I can't get up, and the cats are just looking at her hungrily, I will feel bad. So I am good. But seriously, y'all hit me up. I know you've had a long day, and I appreciate you coming in here and listening to me prattle on about something they love so much. All right, thank you.
Thank you.